Hey nerds, welcome back to the Paper Fold. I am your host Sarah, the Paper Nerd, and I'm so glad to be back nerding out with you on my favorite topic, stationery. Today I get to take a bit of a deep dive into one of my all-time favorite categories of stationery, letterpress. If you are a consumer, you may have seen letterpress cards at, say, your local paper source and notice not just the timeless appeal of the craft, but its higher price. That is because anything letterpressed is handmade and artisanal. Just as there are dozens of fancy cheeses in the grocery store with ingredients, texture, and taste varying greatly and affecting the final product, a lover of letterpress knows that the taste of a given piece, so to speak, will be shaped by the paper, image, ink, specific letterpress used to print it, and of course the artistry and skill of the printer. Although this method is still somewhat trendy these days, this is not letterpress's first rodeo. It was founded in 1450 by Johannes Gutenberg and literally took us out of the Dark Ages, since rather than having to create what you wanted to print on one plate that could only print that one thing, letterpress's key feature is that it's created with movable type, which means that whatever you want to print can be assembled on the plate, printed, and then reassembled to print something else. It was a revolutionary invention, but what is also revolutionary is how Martha Stewart essentially reinvigorated the craft in the 90s. See, what had happened between 1450 and about 2000 is that letterpress was used for everything until about the end of World War II, when offset or flat printing took over. Martha Stewart began showcasing letterpressed wedding invitations and stationery in her publication, and before you knew it, graphic designers and creatives were finding forgotten letterpresses, each with their own special personality, and bringing them back to life. It really was a beautiful cultural rediscovery, reinterpretation, and reinvention, and that is why falling in love with letterpress is sort of like falling in love with wine. There's just a lot to discover within this deceptively simple form, distinguished by type literally pressed into the paper. This is one reason why paper nerds always touch everything. In the case of letterpress, we want to feel the bite or on the indentation of the paper, how deep it is the ink distributed evenly, and then different types of cotton papers and different inks respond to letterpress differently. It can all get pretty deep. So my guest today is one such maker, Kate Murray of Quick Brown Fox Letterpress. Now, Kate is amazing in and of herself as a maker. Her range is brilliant, and she really puts a lot of careful thought and energy into every last piece she presses. Every element, from artwork to colors to paper to which press she uses, and even who she lets print it, goes into that deceptively simple card you pick up at your local card shop. I also invited Kate on because she is chairing the Louis, and we are so excited at the prospect of an actual physical Louis event, since I suspect all of us are sick to death of screens. If you are a maker, I hope you considering entering the Louis, or hopefully the Noted at Noted Awards, which I will soon have details on. And if you are just a garden variety paper nerd, aka consumer, you can learn more about these rather competitive design awards so that you can be sure you are sending the very best. I'll have Kate here right after this, nerds, so sit tight. Hey, paper peeps. So I can't go any further without waxing eloquent about one of my all-time favorite houses of paper, Girl with Knife. Watching this dynamo maker's dramatic ascent over the past few years, I can only conclude that this exquisite stationery range, as well as its equally exquisite creator, Alicia Castaldi, is truly cutting edge in every conceivable sense of the word. When I think about how much Alicia has accomplished with this brand since she debuted in 2019, even I find myself somewhat speechless. You see, lately Girl with Knife has been on something of an industry awards bender. First, in 2020, the Palm Springs brand swept the inaugural Noted at Noted Awards, winning Best Color Combo and Best Use of Profanity. Guys, there were only 10 categories. Girl with Knife won a fifth of them. Then, In 2021, Girl with Knife did it again, taking snarkiest card and again best use of profanity. That means Girl with Knife is the only maker yet to win this National Industry Award for profanity. That is quite a feat in this day and age. There are a lot of great cussing cards out there. On top of that, this past summer, Girl with Knife had to make room on its crowded awards shelf for a Louis. For those of you who don't know, the Louis are the Academy Awards of the greeting card industry. I have been covering them and judging them since I got into the industry in the 90s, but this past year was its 32nd edition. Card makers are a very friendly community, but we all tend to get a little competitive with these awards. Well, this past year, Girl with Knife had 3 finalists and was competing against major card hitters like American Greetings and Hallmark. These companies have big budgets and staffs of some of the best writers and illustrators in the industry. Girl with Knife is literally a girl with a knife coming up with fantastic work. Well, Alicia bested them in the Friendship Encouragement Humorous category with the Friends Through Thick and Thin card. It documents decades of friendship through eyebrow waxing trends, and it is just a small sample of the glamorous and brilliant wisdom that this range puts out in the world like Starbucks pours coffee. A lot of work goes into every last offering. Alicia carefully collages each creation to life, slice by nimble slice. Choose from an array of cards, journals, notepads, and gift wrap. You'll quickly realize that each selection is feminine, authentic, and unapologetic, not unlike Alicia herself. Meanwhile, I hear that a huge product drop awaits us in 2022. Candles, throw pillows, weekly planners, and art prints are all in production as we speak. I, for one, can barely wait. And not only is Girl with Knife winning one award after another, Alicia is emerging as a style icon in her own right. Just pick up the latest edition of What Women Create wherever you buy magazines to see what I mean. In the glorious fall issue, Alicia opens up about her backstory and process, and trust me, you're going to need a tissue. There, you will also get an eyeful of Knife House, aka Alicia's workspace, and you see that this is not just a stationery brand, it's a lifestyle. During quarantine, Alicia gutted and renovated this Palm Springs mid-century house, which she designed to incorporate all the elements of her brand. It's like a concept album that's a house. And unsurprisingly, it's already been featured on hgtv.com. Her throw pillows are on the couches, her art prints are on the walls, and the color patterns throughout mimic her stationery palettes. It's a place to host events, parties, and fashion shoots, and to entertain buyers, and of course to get work done. It's not too surprising that there is also coverage of Alicia, Girl with Knife, and Knife House in the October issue of Palm Springs Life. Knife House is already setting itself apart as a coveted destination in this famed California resort city. So if you are like me and you can't make it to Palm Springs just now to live your best life, you can still make it to girlwithknife.com and start living your own personal season of fierce. Whatever your needs, I guarantee your stationery will slay. All right, I have Kate in the paper fold. Welcome, Kate.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so happy you're here. So I was a little surprised when I was reading your bio. Before starting your own business, you essentially apprenticed with 2 letterpress studios for a decade to learn the ins and outs of running your own house. Who were they, and what types of roles did you fill?
Sure. I come from just a printmaking background. I actually studied to be a master lithographer before I went into letterpress. But there are no jobs in lithography, and it's pretty toxic. So I decided I just needed a job in a print shop. So I got a job at I'm sure it's fine, but I got a job at Soho Letterpress, which
Sure.
was she still exists and's amazing. It was a huge shop. At some point there were like 30 people working there.
That's big.
And it was huge, and it was my first foray into letterpress. So it was on Vandercook printing presses, and it was like a very commercial shop. So it was pretty amazing. Like some of the work that came through there was amazing. Like we did stuff for Coach and Kate Spade and Sotheby's. She has really fantastic clients.
Mhm.
And it's kind of where I like learned to throw a lot of colors at things. I think we printed something for a company where we printed like, I think there were 12 colors on it, and a lot of overlaps and tight registration. So that's where I learned like a lot of that.
That's
And then I
insane.
went,
I mean, that's a lot. For those who aren't familiar with letterpress, every color it needs to pass through the press one more time. I'm assuming it needs to be lined up just so. I mean, it's not
mm-hmm,
just like, oh, let me just run it through the copier. It's like far more involved than that, and some strength is involved, and a lot of very careful
patience.
work.
Yeah, it's a whole process. Like you think you finish, you just can't be like, oh, I finished this color, I'm done. You have to be like, oh, I have 5 more runs of this, and it adds up when it's like 1,000 pieces of paper through the press, and it's, let's say, 12 colors, and that's 12,000 impressions through the press. So it's really like you have to start thinking, budgeting your time that way. But there were people to throw at projects like that. There'd be like 4 or 5 of us working on one piece, on one job.
Right.
So we would just budget the presses and time for that. And I loved working there. And then I got a job in a smaller shop called, which is really amazing, Sesame Letterpress.
Of
Um,
course, she does those beautiful tissue envelopes. She's like one of the few,
yeah,
like you don't see them that much. Her work is exquisite. I'm not a bit surprised. But go on.
yeah. Her work is beautiful. It's all bespoke. Like she takes so much care and time into her work. She is so good at her wedding business. Like she just has like amazing. It was great to just learn that side of it, like the one-on-one customer service, smaller shop, because I was like, I don't know how I go from just me to having 30 people. So then it was nice to step down and work for Breck, because like she has her own wholesale. She does have custom work that she does, and that's where I learned to print on like these like platen presses that I work on,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
which is kind of nice because all my paper is like final size, so it really goes from print to pack,
Hmm.
which is
Hmm.
different from Vandercook's where you have to like cut down the paper after you're done. But yeah, it was just
Yeah,
like two.
that's
Mm-hmm,
gotta be a
it's a
huge,
lot.
that's gotta be a very involved step that like I've never thought
Mm-hmm.
about.
Yeah. So I've got boxes here, and they're all just like final cut pieces of paper. They're just ready for the press. I actually even get my greeting cards final cut and scored. So all I have to do is
Mhm.
like fold them, package them, they go out. Um, but yeah, working for Breck was like good for learning like inventory and packing wholesale, and just thinking about like the small things that she thinks about, like beautiful packaging. If you've ever seen, she just has like, she's really put thought into like each and every piece, how it goes out. Her note card boxes are like foil stamped and gorgeous. So it was just like another like kind of learning process working for her until I was ready to go off on my own.
Hey, Paper Peeps. So, longtime Paperfold listeners know that Kitty Meow Boutique has been a fabulous client of mine for some time now, and I am so proud today to be able to help promote the many, many projects that the human fireball behind this range, aka Catherine Hildner, currently has going on. First and foremost, Kitty Meow Boutique is a Chicagoland house of paper and gifts. This stationery range has a sweet side and a witty side, not unlike you and your moods, I'm guessing. But whatever your current state, this range of cards, invitations, journals, coasters, art prints, enamel pins, and gifts pack a most polished, brilliant punch. Think of your favorite, most flattering outfit and how great you look and feel in it. Kitty Meow puts it in paper form to share with the world. Whether your persona is Audrey Hepburn or Betty Page, you'll find something to perfectly showcase your message message here. But this range is about much more than just surface appearances. It's empowering, and not just for you, but the people you send the cards to. Even whoever sees you using that journal, at its core, Kitty Meow Boutique is authentic, and it honors our most valued connections. For example, Catherine sent me her latest range, the Entrepreneur Collection, for consideration in stationery trends, and girl, it knocked my socks off. Seriously, I cannot believe this did not exist until 2021. The world has always needed a card that reads, "You are more than a customer, you are like family, love and appreciate you." Or, "Cue the confetti cannons, can't wait to start working on this project together." If your work has any sort of entrepreneurial component to it, check them out. Your clients are going to be friggin' knocked out and begging you for more business, because I can guarantee you whoever else is competing for their business is not sending them these amazing cards. Of course, Kitty Meow is also available wholesale. You can shop Kitty Meow on Fair 24/7, and it is also in the Best of Show showroom at Atlanta Market. Thanks to the strength of this paper range, Catherine has seen it go from being carried in 7 stores to over 650 stores in under 2 years. That's astronomical. But here's the thing, Kitty Meow Boutique is not just about finding that single card or pin. If you too are a maker with a dream, Catherine wants to help you bring it to beautiful life, as you can see for yourself on the education tab of her site. She already offers KMB Signature Collective, a mastermind for women in the product-based business world who have an idea and a plan but can use some intensive guidance and support. Now Catherine just unveiled the KMB Powerhouse Product Party. Essentially, it's a 3-month program that you can stop or start at any time, and each month delves into a topic such as email marketing or getting traction on wholesale platforms. This topic is explored all month and closes with a live training. Other perks include a private Facebook group, virtual happy hours, a production and resource guide, incentives and prizes, even a weekly check-in. I just love how Catherine is creating a community with every last thing she does. She's doing it through her education as well as with every last piece of stationery she prints. So whether you are wanting to reconnect with someone you have fallen out of touch with, thank a client for their business, or maybe you want much, much more than that, to manifest your dreams into reality, Kitty Meow Boutique is the place to start. Make it all happen at kittymeowboutique.com and tell them Sarah sent you. And it's interesting that you went with like kind of like a big commercial house and then like evolved to a small maker. I mean, like that's a trajectory that makes a lot of sense. And you know, in my own career in consulting biz, I've seen it again and again. You know, we all want everything yesterday. When when I used to sit at meetings when I just started out at Gibson Decorative Accessories, I'd listen to executives like discuss this and that, and I'd think, why aren't I in this conversation? I know enough. But when I look back, I really didn't. So I definitely see the wisdom of paying one's dues, so to speak, on the way up. So it sounds like you took a lot from both experiences that you used in your own business. Like, what can you speak to sort of that philosophy in your own trajectory?
Yeah, I definitely, working for both places, like I feel like I took a little bit from both. Like I feel like uh my at Sesame, like just her like way with her clients, and her like she's just very a patient, lovely person, and working for her was just a great way to learn how to manage like the public side, because when I went to
Mhm.
work for her, like social media became a thing.
Right.
And so like, learning how to balance like what people see on social media versus, that's a great way to get your brand out there. And it wasn't something, when I worked in a previous shop, like we ever had to think about how the brand, how the brand was perceived. It was just about, you get jobs in, you print them, you have a good reputation, word of mouth. So then I definitely relied heavy on word of mouth when I first got started. But then I really started incorporating more of what I learned with like social media and just like uh, learning what a brand is and getting that brand out there from the second place I
I
work.
think I see one of your letterpresses in the background, possibly. And so many letterpressers seem to have relationships with their presses that almost seems like a relationship we'd have with like maybe a cherished pet. So can you can you tell me how you found and restored your presses, as well as like their names and personalities? I mean, I assume you use different ones for different jobs.
Yeah. So the heartbreaking one is my first press. Well, my first press, I'll actually give you a tour that no one else can see.
Ooh,
I have a
ooh.
little press who's actually my oldest press, and
Oh, it's
that's
a
Baby.
tabletop.
It's a tabletop, and her name is Baby. I think she's
Uh-huh.
1898. And that
Mhm.
was the first press I ever bought. I convinced my husband to drive to Cincinnati from Brooklyn overnight to get her. And then she was in our tiny 450 square foot apartment for a while. So I was just like
Wow.
printing on her at home. And then my
Uh,
second press is my Heartbreak, which is Goldie. That if you follow me on social media, you'll see she broke during the pandemic.
Oh,
I did what I said I'd
Goldie.
never do. I know. I bought a press that had welds. At some point, she had like fallen over and like
Mhm.
been quasi fixed, but there were cracks that I never saw. And then over time, those cracks turned into fractures, and she full stop broke. I still have her at the mechanic trying to figure out if we can fix her, but we don't know. But then happily, I bought Jude, who is actually named after the patron saint of lost causes. Because I
Excellent.
just
I like
felt
that.
I just I just felt so lost at the time. But she's amazing. She runs on a motor. Nobody prints on her but me. She does have a variable speed, but I have to adjust the variable speed by hand. So I don't trust anybody to print on her but me. We have like a symbiotic relationship at this point. All my presses are girls, by the way.
Yeah, no, they
Um,
seem very feminine. I'm getting a very
mhm.
feminine vibe from them. They're great. I love how wait, but wait, let me ask you. I want to ask you about Baby. How much does Baby weigh? Just so,
I think
like, is she like
baby's
several
like
hundred pounds?
I think she's 150 pounds. I
That's
always
pretty
forget. I
heavy.
say she's 50, and then my husband says that's not true. She's definitely
He's
over
like, I'm
100
the one.
pounds.
I'm the one who
He's the one
carried
that
her up the
carries her.
stairs. Like
I think
she's
she's
not
over
50
100
pounds.
pounds. Yeah,
But that's
she's
a good.
heavy.
That's
And then I think Jude is like 1,800 pounds. And then we've got Bridget, which is
mhm.
1,800 pounds. Bridget's
Wow.
the, I'm like a
She's a big
lapscadic, but
girl.
she is. They're twins. But Bridget is the patron saint of printing presses. So
Oh, that's
I have a whole
awesome.
All Saints shop here.
I love it. I love it. I mean, I've been at shows a few times where someone would bring a tabletop in and let people demonstrate and show it. I can't speak to the value of that enough. Like, it's so amazing. I know it's got to be a pain to schlep this to Javits or
I'm
or
not gonna
whatever
lie.
show.
I always say I want to take her to Javits, but I have too many cards. And so she would definitely be in the way, but she'd be so fun to like, I don't know,
She would be so fun.
if I can
I
convince him to like help me take her. I also was like, hey, should we take her to Noted? And then Jay was like, how are we going to get her to San Francisco?
road trip.
Yeah, road trip with Baby. We could do a whole like Instagram stories, like a TikTok
Right,
reel
right. You could stop and
just on
visit your
Baby.
stores and
Yeah, on
introduce
the
her.
way. Oh my God. I have thought about it. I've definitely thought about it.
It's so funny that you say that because I have been wanting to take like a stationary road trip. Like I've been thinking about it myself, like just stopping at all the stores that I love
Hmm.
and visiting them and doing small films. I mean, I can barely keep the podcast together, but it's
It
it's
would be
it's a dream.
amazing. Yeah, I have a
So
dream about like restored like VW bus that I just put like presses in the back of and drive around.
That would be so amazing. You could go to like concerts in the summer and like
Mm-hmm.
let people like pay $1 to make a card and check it
It'd
out,
be
and
so cool.
it would be so much
I
fun.
keep working on it. I know.
Yeah, let me know if you need a partner for that
Yeah,
business plan
yeah. I'll
because
I'll be like,
I
I need
might
a
be
little
game.
help.
I
Okay,
might be
sounds
game.
good. Sounds
So
good.
now I want to. so uh, now I want to talk to you about your range. I mean, you spoke about your experience in the first print shop. I mean, you do use up to 11 colors on a card, and what I really love about your designs is that they're so carefully considered. You really think about them. I'm going to use two examples. One is the "I'm Your Number One Fan" card, which is on my card wall because I'm a big Stephen King
Yay.
fan and a big horror fan. So it's a play on the novel Misery and the film, really. Everything's beautifully laid out and artfully arranged. There's a typewriter, there's two prescription bottles, there's a penguin, and across the back there's the mallet. Oh my god.
Yeah.
So it's really clever, but it has that certain like seamless quality that you sort of have to think about. Like it takes a moment. Like you don't just look
Hmm.
at it and get it. You have to think about it, which I love. And I also recall the first product I saw from you. I think it was at NSS. It was that cherry blossom calendar, and it was a single
Hmm.
sheet, and you just pretty much followed a cherry blossom through the year. I mean, it's the same image, just in different versions. So again, it's a simple idea, but so clever. So I want to hear a little bit about your process that you when you sort of like think up these cards. Like how do you do it? And also, do you approach cards as a collection or just individual designs?
So first of all, I always keep um, in my phone. I have the Notes app, and so like
Mhm.
seriously, several times a day, I'm like, oh my god, would this be a funny card? And I'll write it down. And generally, I like go to my husband, and I'm like when I did the misery card, I also have a
Uh-huh.
card that's a milk carton that says "I'm missing you," like the old. Yeah, it's. I love it, and people think it's really funny. But my husband was like, "This is way too dark. You can't." Which I did, and people like it, and it works. But and the misery card, Jay was like, "I don't know." I feel like when he says "I don't know," that's when I'm like, "I'm gonna do it." But
That's good. Good. I paper, and I think people who love stationery, there is like an overlap between true crime and horror and loving to
mm-hmm,
write. I don't know what it is, but there is a Venn diagram in there somewhere. But
for sure,
that's
I think so.
that's interesting that he's your soundboard. I mean, I talk about stuff with my husband as well, and he's in finance, so it's all like very foreign to him. But he is a great sounding board, but I do ignore him sometimes.
Well, him and my best friend Dan, who also has a greeting card line, we have a really long text thread that's just called "Bad Idea of the Day," and so we just throw terrible ideas at each other, and some of them stick and work. And misery was one of those where we, until I moved up here, we had been sharing a we. He's like my best friend from college. So we've been friends forever. And then we shared a studio in Brooklyn. And if you've seen me at New York Now, you've seen Dan because we always share a booth. But we just like throw bad ideas at each other. And Misery was one where we were just in the studio and we were just going back and forth. And I was giving him ideas. He has very beautiful illustrations. And then I
Which
just
is his
have these
range?
like,
Wait, I think I. What is his range? Is
he
he
does,
a noted?
he is not doing noted until I can convince him. But he does these beautiful scratch boards. He'll do a
Mhm.
scratch board. So he hand does the entire like a little board of whatever his illustration is to make it look like Japanese woodcuts. He'll scan it in and then
Ooh,
he'll do the color washes in Photoshop.
ooh,
But
I
you can
love
find
it.
him
What's
online at Daniel Joseph Durkin, I think.com, but he's Daniel Joseph Durkin Illustrations. But
yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, we just throw bad ideas at each other, and then between him, really him and Jay are my like sounding boards. They just like see all my artwork before anybody else does.
Mhm.
sometimes they both tell me no, but I do it anyway. But then I love color and I love the process of printing. So, yes, I do have an 11 color card that I print a million of once a year and then I don't touch it again. And then, the calendar you were saying, I'm still doing a cherry blossom tree. This year is a
Mhm.
bonsai cherry tree. I don't know what next year is going to be yet, but
Oh,
yeah,
neat.
it's just like I can't I think about how many colors it has to be, like when I'm drawing it, and
Mhm.
I just don't want to compromise on like what I already in my head see how it should be, and how the illustration starts out. And I know I could dial it back to one or two colors, but like
Right, right,
when you see a tree, like it's a million colors all year
right,
long,
right,
So
right.
I just want to capture as much of that as I can.
Right, right. Look, I get it. And I think there's really something to be said about, your original vision and, just trying to get stuff as close to how you conceive it. I know with the publication, like I put together an issue and I have a certain idea of how it's going to look in my head. And sometimes when I get proofs, it's very close and it overlaps. And sometimes it's like in a completely different direction. Sometimes that direction is great. And I've learned over time, like to go with it rather than just stay so loyal to that original vision. But um, I think as creatives, it's always just a matter of like, you know, kind of like negotiating that gap, I guess.
Exactly.
So I have heard that letterpress takes 10 minutes to learn, but a lifetime to master. I think I didn't know that you came from a litho background,
hmm
which is really interesting, in that because you pretty much learned letterpress like in your professional life, which is really cool. Um, but briefly, can you share with listeners the criteria that you use to differentiate a quality piece of letterpress from like a less quality one? I know there's certain trends involved, but I'd love to hear your take.
Sure. I would say it only takes 10 minutes to learn. I've done demos where on baby where, you can learn in less than a minute on how to print on baby.
Mhm.
I when I first started working at Soho, I had never printed on a Vandercook. My boss was like, "This is the pedal, this is the gripper, this is the guide. Start printing." And that was my like lesson in Vandercook printing. Um, I think like anything, the more you do something, the more what is it like 10,000 hours or
Yes,
whatever to
yes,
master
yes,
something.
yes.
I mean, for me, I have very strict code for like what I'll let out of the shop. Like
Sure.
everything gets checked. I have very strict. I'm a sucker for good registration.
Hmm.
I'm also a sucker for like something that's perfectly inked, whether it's a solid or and your text should be like crisp and clean.
Okay. When
Um,
you say good registration, does that mean the
mhm,
ink lining up with
mhm.
the press with the indentation? All right. All
Well,
right.
like each color is exactly where it should be. Like each color, I have a lot of tight registration on mine, which is
Hmm. Yeah.
um, like
Like
if
your
you look
lucha
at the
card, right?
misery card or the
Hmm.
luchador adorable card or my popsicle card, everything just is exactly where it's supposed to be. I mean that's definitely my aesthetic. That's not
Hmm.
everyone's, but
Sure.
I do a lot of outlines to help me with registration, but I don't use registration marks because everything is final size. So everything just has to line up when I'm
Right.
printing
Right.
it.
Wow.
So it's yeah, so though to me, and I also don't like it. I mean, I'm not the old school letterpress mindset where it's just like what's called kiss impression, where it doesn't leave a mark on the paper. Really, the ink really just
Like a
sits on
deep
top.
bite.
It's
Yeah.
no, yeah. So I'm pro if you bite the paper. A kiss is just like the ink and the plate barely kiss the paper. Like there's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
impression.
Yeah.
That's very old school.
Yes.
I don't do that. Yeah. I also am not fan of like I don't want it to be so deep that you see the plate. I think there's got to be like a perfect for me there's like a perfect in between where it's like there's enough impression where you can tell that it was made by hand on a press,
Mhm.
but it's not overkill. and yeah, it's just got to be like very cleanly printed. Your ink should not be muddy. And it should be consistent. You should be able to maintain it the whole way through your run.
Right,
Is my
right,
thought.
right. And so it sits in the valley created by
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
impression. And of
Yeah.
course, yeah, I mean, and it makes sense that traditional letterpress, especially when it was like used for newspapers and
Mm-hmm.
everyday things, that it wouldn't be that big thick bite. But when letterpress came into, for lack of a better term, fashion and stationery, it seemed like
Yeah.
when it first appeared, and when Martha Stewart really like reinvigorated it, it was all about like the big bite on the
Mm-hmm.
super heavy cotton paper, and of course,
Mm-hmm.
like the paper is a huge ingredient. Do you use only one? Do you use different papers?
I generally and I'll give them a shout out. I use Boxcar's Flurry paper.
Okay.
I like to use them because they're another small business in New York State. I like that I
Hmm.
can source my paper and it's made in New York State. Um, I'll sometimes use if I don't like to overwhelm them because I've been super busy. I try to give them like months in advance on my schedule for paper. But otherwise, I do use like Strathmore.
Yeah.
110 pound for my
Hmm.
cards as well. They're really close paper quality
Hmm.
wise.
Hmm.
So that's what I use, but I do love the flurry. It's a beautiful paper.
Right. And if you're used to using it, that, you know, it makes the most sense. Uh, um, so finally, you are chairing the Louis, which is so exciting that we're going to actually
It's
have
so
a.
weird.
It's so weird. I'm on the committee with you, and I'm so excited for the actual in real life event. The last Louis gala that I went to, and that physically existed anywhere other than a screen, was in 2019 in Brooklyn, and part of the inaugural Noted. Um, so much has changed since then, and obviously we're still making plans, and everything's still being decided. But I would love to hear. Can you give our listeners a sense of what we can expect this year in San Francisco in April?
Well, yeah, it's my first committee chair. It's
You're
really
doing
fun.
amazing. You're doing a really good job.
I didn't realize how hard it was going to be, but it's good. It's the last one I went to was as well in Brooklyn in 2019, and Mary Beth has run the last two virtual Noted, and so I feel like I have really big shoes to fill because she did such an amazing job to like pivot to suddenly being virtual. But yeah, we're excited in person. We're like finalizing the location. We're still finalizing a lot of stuff. It's hard to tell you, but it's going to be really fun. It's going to be in person. We get to actually see each other, like, and be in a room together for a night. Just it's going to be great. I'm happy it's going to be with Noted because we get to celebrate the kickoff of Noted together at the Louis. People can display their awards at Noted. I think it's just going to be a great celebration to just being back in person again, whether or not you're
Absolutely.
up for a Louis or not, or if you win, or if you are a finalist, just to be there in person, I think is going to be amazing. I keep sharing
Yeah.
this like office meme from with Angela from The Office that I'm on the party
Yeah.
planning committee. And that's kind of what it feels like. I'm like, I keep calling the Louis a party. I'm like, oh, I can't, this party is going to be amazing. And it is a party. Like,
It is. And you're no Angela. Like, you're doing a really
oh
nice
no.
job. Like, thank
Yeah.
God.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
God
I'm
it's
no
not like
Angela.
that.
I promise. I promise. But I think it's the funniest
It is
meme.
hysterical because I saw that you put up in the Proof to Product group. Yeah, it's very exciting to get together. And I think the great thing about having a springtime show for stationery is that everybody kind of tries to show their face, and I think even if they're not exhibiting, a lot of people still go in for it. I mean, obviously it's ideal if you exhibit. Not everybody is at that point, but I feel like with the Louis there, they will, if you're up for a Louis and you're not exhibiting, you're more likely to come to San Francisco. And so it will be all the much more of a real true industry gathering where we're literally all in the same place at the same time,
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than scattered on screens. I mean, I'm just, um, after I went to New York now, it was kind of tough to go back to Zoom calls after seeing everyone. Like it was so exciting, and it was kind of anticlimactic, uh, to um, to go back to that. But I do hope that everyone enters. We're going to have news soon on the Noted Awards, which are
Yes.
also going on. And I, we're trying, I don't really, my meeting is this afternoon where we're coming up with timeline and categories and like a
Nice.
lot of stuff. So I don't have as much to announce even about that, but I hope that they kind of like work together in correlation and bounce off each other.
I
It's
think
exciting.
so.
It's exciting to have two different awards, and we're just so excited. So, uh,
Yeah, and I just want
thank
to say, like, if you really want, like, just don't neglect the like smaller categories. Like, we've
yes.
been saying like everybody goes for like humorous birthday, and everybody goes for, like there's the big ones. But like,
Hmm.
I'm really pushing, like, last year I went in for best in letterpress, and the
Yes.
category got canceled because we didn't have enough letterpress people like applying for that one. So just like, remember there are like, if not that I'm saying, I guess it's, yeah, if you want better chances, I'd say
Yes,
just pick like the
absolutely.
smaller categories. And also we need to make sure we can save those categories. If we don't have enough interest for a few years, it's hard to say like we should keep these.
Right, to
So
justify
just
it.
like, yeah,
Right.
so you can always, reach out if you have questions. I had somebody who was like, "Oh, but I don't have a brand new card for this." I'm like, "It doesn't have to be this year. Like you just had to have made it by the time, it doesn't it could be like a couple years old. It doesn't have
Right.
to be made this year."
It just has to have been wholesaled during the
Mhm.
calendar year, correct? Yeah. So,
Yeah, and I think
yeah,
some people get mixed up with that. So I'm like, "No, no, no. It just has to have
right.
been sold in the past year."
Right. And as someone who has judged it many times, I concur 100%. I mean, you get the category for humorous birthday under $4, $5, whatever the price break is, I forgot.
Mhm.
But you when you're judging, everything's in binders. Like you're there's like a wall of binders of every category. And
Mhm.
some of them will be like three binders full, and some will like
Yeah.
barely be any. So um your chances are better if you're only competing against 10 people. But also, there are exciting get wells out there that maybe
Mhm.
people are neglecting, and like these categories are workhorses, and definitely there's a lot of great design there. So please think beyond birthday.
Yeah, and it's always good to like, when I first got started, I did the basics like birthday, Thanksgiving, love, like the ones you like have to do. But now that I
Hmm.
have like more time and I can like expand, I am doing, yeah, maybe I don't sell a ton, but I am doing some Halloween cards. I just made a Thanksgiving card. So like,
Hmm.
it's also a good excuse to like expand your line into a category you might not be covering that might end up being a really well selling card.
Right, it might put you on the map, literally.
Mhm.
um,
Yeah, for
so
sure.
what I mean, with your own range, what do you think about the difference, the importance of having like these cards that are just about connection or encouragement or empathy, that aren't tied to dates on the calendar? I
Mhm.
know, there's a real schism between how baby boomers and how millennials, I think, communicate through cards. So, like, how do you balance those in your range? Do you see the sales of those just like everyday types of cards going up as your specific occasions go down? Like, what do you see?
So I do have specific occasion cards because I kind of feel like, I mean, birthday always does great. But I always pitch like a lot of my everyday cards, and what I call my like my biggest line is the love cards and the
Hmm.
everyday cards. But like some of the love cards are just good for encouragement, or they could be an anniversary card, or it could be just like a I'm thinking of you card, or just like a funny way to say hi to somebody. And then, the everyday cards, some of them are a little ridiculous. Like I have one that's just like a bunch of summertime stuff. So like a grill, some sausages, some grilling equipment, and it just says like grills gone wild, happy summer or
Yes.
something. And it's just like a weird card to send in the summertime, or to send anytime, like I think
Right.
it's fun to have cards that are just a laugh. Like I
Hmm.
still love doing markets because I like it when people like look, I can see people look at a card and get it and then laugh. And
Hmm.
I think if it's generating an emotion with people, and if it's a good way to like share an emotion through the mail, if you laugh and you send it to your friend, and then you guys can call each other and talk about it. Like I have a
Right.
quarantine bingo card where you keep half and you send it to somebody else, and then you call and you play quarantine bingo. Like anything
It
that
was
creates a dialogue.
yeah, and a connection, and yeah, and I think there a lot of people do see a card and they like it. I mean, I think younger people see a card and they like it. They might not know who they're going to send it to quite yet, but they want to grab it, so they pick it up. I think people shop like that. I also think the idea of collections are really interesting. I see a lot of people leaning in to these like very quirky you know um I guess like subsets. I mean, I know I know I keep coming back to Stephen King, but honestly, like you could do a series, like if you did an it one, if you did one for, you picked a few and
Yeah.
pick the symbols and the best lines that are like you could do a range and send it to him. He would tweet about it and like that's it.
Yeah, that or he'd be like, who's this weird stalker fan?
You'd be like, you could send him the misery card of the cover in the cover.
And
I
he's
know
like,
that.
no, this person. I'm
He's
a
like,
little worried
I'm,
about that.
I know.
I'm still waiting for his publicist to be like, you have to get rid of this card.
And meanwhile, his next novel will be about a maker who's like obsessed with a writer
Uh-huh.
who keeps creating greeting
Exactly.
cards that,
Well,
you
we
know,
yeah, we keep joking that the little town we moved to is basically a Stephen King town. So he's like, my husband's like, you should just write him and tell him we found the perfect town for him to come check out for his next book.
that would be great. You guys could work on you could collaborate on a couple of these
Mm-hmm. We'll do
cards,
a limited edition letterpress covered book.
I mean, I see, true crime like scattered throughout different ranges. Like Little Goat Press has like a true crime all the
Mm-hmm.
time sticker, and there's a few. It's dotted through, and I really think that is, it has legs to it if someone
Mm-hmm.
does it. And you see all the podcasters are like going crazy with merch. Like people who love a podcast will buy a sticker. I'm really hoping that like some really great makers start collaborating with some of these podcasters to kind of like up the design of their merch,
Mm-hmm.
because it seems like consumers, if they love a podcast, they're going to buy like whatever they put out. But like
Mm-hmm.
let's like up the design a little bit. Like I would love to see some of these collaborations.
It'd be
So I guess
amazing.
if anyone's listening, call me and I can try to pair you with a good maker.
I love it. That's smart.
Anyway, well, it was such a treat to catch up with you today. Thank you so much for coming by.
Yeah, thanks for chatting with me.
Thank you so much, Kate, for coming on the Paperfold. I have been thinking a lot about the bad idea of the day thread, and I think it's brilliant. First of all, it's great when you can find a fellow creative that you feel comfortable enough sharing these brainstorms with, but I think as creatives, we have to give ourselves permission to even voice our ideas. I know, at least in my case, every good idea or project that succeeds comes along only after tons of bad ideas. So if you're too scared to throw something at the wall because it may be bad, you may never stumble across that good idea. And if you love stationery, it's a great idea to learn more about the Louis Awards and the Noted Awards. You may just find the next maker to obsess over. Get started at the Greeting Card Association website, greetingcard.org. And may I also add that the Greeting Card Association is the only association that lobbies in Washington, D.C. on behalf of you and I, the citizen mailer. UPS and FedEx and all the private shipping services have their own lobbyists, but the rest of us have the GCA. As such, there are plenty of resources there for you to nerd out over and get more involved should you choose. So finally, thank you for listening. Again, our theme music is by the wonderful Sharon Glassman of Smile Songs. See and hear more at Smile Songs. If you like what you are hearing, please give me a 5-star rating. And if you feel like waxing eloquent, please feel free to leave a review too. Thank you so much, nerds. Stay safe.